We like to think change happens when we get inspired, when we hear a great story, watch a moving film, or attend a life-changing seminar. Inspiration is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but if we're honest, inspiration rarely creates lasting change. Real change begins at a much deeper, more uncomfortable place. It begins when you look at your own life, your situation, your habits, and you reach a point where you say, I can't live like this anymore. That moment isn't pretty. It isn't polished, it isn't inspiring in the traditional sense. It's raw, it's uncomfortable. It's that deep, gnawing feeling of disgust. Disgust is powerful. It's the emotion that finally pushes you out of complacency. It's the point where excuses stop sounding reasonable and action becomes the only option. Think about it. Many people stay in unfulfilling jobs for years. They know they're unhappy, but they convince themselves it's fine. They tell themselves they'll leave when the time is right, but then one day something happens, a conversation, an insult, a breaking point, and suddenly they can't tolerate it one more second. That's when change happens. We change our diet when we're disgusted by the person staring back in the mirror. We fix our finances when we're disgusted by the constant stress and debt. We change relationships when we're disgusted by the way we're being treated, or the way we're treating someone else. This isn't about negativity for the sake of it. Disgust in this context is a signal. It's your mind and body saying, enough, you are better than this, do something. And when you act from that place, the change is rarely temporary. It's not a New Year's resolution that fades by February. It's a deep, permanent shift because you've reached the emotional threshold where going back is no longer an option. So, here's the truth most people avoid. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another self-help book. You don't need someone to give you permission. You need to get real with yourself. You need to confront the thing you've been tolerating for too long until it disgusts you enough to move. And when that happens, you'll be amazed, because the moment you're truly disgusted, change isn't hard anymore, it's inevitable. We often imagine change as a gentle, inspiring journey, a moment of clarity where the clouds part and the path forward becomes obvious. But in reality, change rarely begins in comfort. It begins in discomfort, sometimes in frustration, and very often in a kind of emotional breaking point where the weight of staying the same is simply too much to bear. This is why so many people continue to live in situations they know are not good for them, because as long as they can tolerate the discomfort, they will. As long as it's manageable, as long as they can distract themselves, as long as they can tell themselves a story that makes it okay, they will stay. But there comes a moment when that story collapses. That is the moment when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change, and that is when transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. When we are young, we believe that change happens because we set goals, because we dream big, because we get motivated. We think that if we want something badly enough, that desire will carry us. But life has a way of testing that theory. People want to be healthier, but they keep eating poorly until they feel so unwell that every bite is a reminder of the damage being done. People want to save money, but they keep spending until they are so deep in debt that the stress overshadows every purchase. People want to leave a toxic relationship, but they stay until they are so emotionally drained that even the fear of loneliness feels lighter than the weight of staying. These moments share a common thread, the recognition that the current state is no longer tolerable. It is an emotional threshold. Before we cross it, we might know logically that change is needed, but our fear is still bigger. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of what others will think. These fears are strong. They whisper to us that maybe it's not so bad, maybe it's safer to wait, maybe we'll figure it out later. But once the pain of our present situation swells to a certain point, it drowns out those whispers. Fear may still be there, but it is no longer the dominant force in the decision. The discomfort has taken over, and discomfort is a much stronger motivator than inspiration alone. This is why some of the most profound life changes come after moments of intense emotion. A person wakes up one day and realizes they can't stand the reflection in the mirror anymore. Another receives a medical diagnosis that makes every unhealthy habit suddenly urgent to change. Someone gets one more call from a debt collector and decides they will never feel that humiliation again. These are not polite nudges toward a better life. They are gut-level jolts that snap a person awake. They strip away the illusions, excuses, and rationalizations, leaving only the truth: something must change now. We like to avoid discomfort, but discomfort is often the most honest feedback we will ever receive. It tells us where we are out of alignment with who we could be. It points to the areas of our life we've been neglecting. And when that discomfort turns to disgust, when it's no longer just an inconvenience, but a deep sense of "I cannot keep living this way," that is the tipping point. At that point, the fear of the unknown feels smaller compared to the certainty of what will happen if nothing changes. Think about any major breakthrough you've had in your own life. Maybe you were in a job that drained you every day. You told yourself it paid the bills, it was stable, you were lucky to have it. But over time, the exhaustion piled up, the frustration grew, and the sense of being unfulfilled turned into resentment. Then one day, something snapped. You realized that even if you didn't know what was next, staying meant losing more of yourself. In that moment, you didn't need a motivational speech. You didn't need someone to tell you it was possible. The pain had already made the decision for you. All that was left was to act. That's the paradox of transformation, the very thing we try to avoid. Deep emotional discomfort is often the thing that frees us. We wait for perfect timing, for more confidence, for a sign, but none of those are as powerful as simply reaching the end of our tolerance. When we are comfortable enough to endure, we will endure. But when we can no longer endure, we will act. It's important to understand that this process is not about negativity or wallowing in misery. It's about using that emotional turning point as fuel. Disgust is not pleasant, but it is productive when channeled. It cuts through the mental clutter. It makes priorities clear. It eliminates the false sense of "I have time," and replaces it with "I must act now." And when action comes from that place, it is often more decisive, more committed, and more enduring than action born from casual inspiration. There's a reason why people who hit rock bottom often create the most lasting change. It's not because rock bottom is magical. It's because at rock bottom, the pain of staying the same is absolute. There is no comfort left to cling to. And when comfort is gone, change becomes the only direction left to go. This doesn't mean we have to wait for a crisis to make changes, but it does explain why some changes feel effortless once that emotional threshold is crossed. The decision has already been made emotionally, and the mind simply follows. Even in history, revolutions rarely start because everything is fine. They start when people become so dissatisfied with the status quo that fear of the consequences of action is outweighed by the certainty of what will happen if nothing changes. That's true for societies, and it's true for individuals. Whether it's leaving a career, ending a destructive habit, or stepping into a new identity, the moment of transformation is rarely a calm, rational calculation. It is often a visceral, almost physical need to move forward because staying still is unbearable. So the next time you find yourself stuck, unable to make a change you know you need to make, don't just look for more motivation. Pay attention to your discomfort. Notice where you are tolerating less than you deserve. Ask yourself if you're waiting for things to get better on their own, or if you're simply afraid to take the next step. And then consider this: when the pain of staying the same finally outweighs your fear, you won't need to force yourself to act. You will act because there will be no other choice, and in that moment, change won't just be possible, it will be inevitable.